Okay, so a very good welcome to this research methodology workshop for the research project. So I'm Dr. Mary De Silva, and I'll be presenting to you this PowerPoint slides, which will help you to be familiar with how to complete your research project. So let me share screen. Okay. So the first thing we will cover is what does this workshop um, aim to give you. So first of all is you will gain an understanding of business research approaches to undertake the research project. Know the requirements expected to complete the full research project successfully. Apply a systematic approach when undertaking business research. So the first one is you will have an understanding, and then you will know what are the requirements. The third is for a systematic approach. Then selecting the method or methods which are most appropriate for undertaking the research project. Then you will know how to present your information to meet the needs of the recipients and know the required and prescribed format. So we've got information, and we even have a format of what you must follow in order to present it in the best way possible. This is the module description. What you are going to achieve by completing your research project. So the research project is designed to enable students to focus on a critical and important issue. So this means you need to identify one area that is critical, that is important in your organization. Then undertake effective and systematic business research. To carry out research, it must be done in an orderly way. You need to know what information to look for, and then you will carry out that particular task in a way that will help you organize your data systematically. You must integrate theory and practice. This is a very key point in research. Do not think that this is an essay where you just write your thoughts, your feelings, what you see. No, it has to integrate with theory. You have completed your modules, you have learned of many theories. So you need to examine which of the theories can fit into this research that you're going to do. All right, so it is theory and the practice. So the practice means what you are experiencing in your workplace. Incorporate understanding taken from a critical review of appropriate literature. So when you are doing all your assignments, there's always information that you will read from journals and books, and you need to put it into your assignment. So for this particular module, you need to continue to do the same. You need to look at appropriate literature. And if it is on a topic that you are doing, you relate it to what you are doing. Base their project on sound analysis and argument. So it is not just your observation, writing a diary of what happens. No, you need to have analysis. And analysis means looking into the why, the how, the what happened. That is analysis. And even deeper than that, all right? Critically examining. And then having arguments. Why are you saying that? Why do you say that the organization is having that problem? What do you have to put in to show support that what you are saying is true? Okay. Then document and present the research and findings in a prescribed format. So a prescribed format is a recommended format, a format that we tell you this is the way to make your presentation, and you just have to follow that, all right? Because it is um, the recommended format, so you can't go and do other things. What are the indicative contents? Indicative contents are the main things that you are going to do in your research project. First of all, choosing a topic and designing the project. For all your previous assignments, you notice that we gave you the question, we gave you the scenario, and we basically asked you part questions, specific. And all you got to do is you need to go and do research work and answer them. I would say that is easy. Now, in the research project, you come up with a topic. So if you ask me, what topic do? I will have to put it back to you. What do you want to do? What is the area of interest that you have? What topic do you feel that you can contribute to and examine and write a good report? Second, analyzing the literature and writing a critical literature review. Using what other people have said in their literature, you're going to import that into your research project, but you need to comment about it. That is the meaning of writing a critical literature review. Third point, developing conceptual theoretical framework and research methodology frameworks. So when you go through your complete course on a research project, your lecturer will deliver to you the different topics that cover theoretical framework, research methodology framework. Next, collecting and analyzing research material. So research work is something that we do out of curiosity. You're trying to find out, why is it happening? What can be done? And for that to take place, you need to collect the research data and you need to analyze it. For example, age. How many people in this age category from 20 to 25, from 26 to 30? How many male, how many female? How many were working as junior executives? How many were in management position? So for all the data you collect, you need to do a little bit of analysis. Next, interpreting research material and drawing conclusions. So this is the part where I will say, when we ask you the question, so what? You have to draw conclusions. So after everything that you have done, you have researched a topic and you came up with your findings. So now what? You need to conclude with a statement as to what you're going to do. And then forming arguments and writing up the project. So here again, you may want to agree or disagree or give your opinion as to how that whole um, issue can be tackled. Okay. Next, you will see that this is a very familiar page. It shows you what is in the portal, research project, and the first one is section 1. So here you have things like a word of welcome, referencing systems, Harvard referencing, there's a PowerPoint demo. The same thing that you have seen for all the modules, but you don't have to go back to your earlier modules. We have it uploaded here. And then how to go and get into your research resources. And then module specification. What I showed you on the second and third slide is the module specification. And then there's a plagiarism declaration and even a project submission cover sheet. So this is found in the section 1. From section 2, you will have a lot of material that is so useful for you to complete your research project. You are now a research student. You have completed studying the modules. So you need to look at all the different topics here. Don't miss anything. You've got to go through each of it because they are required for you to complete your research. For example, the project requirements, which I'm covering some today. Then there's an introduction to business research. There's a book that you can download and read as much as you want about how to carry out business research, what kinds of research there are. You might have heard of primary research, secondary research. You might have heard of quantitative research, qualitative research. That's what you're going to get by reading the book. And then problem statement. I would explain problem statement as this. You are going to carry out a research work. If something is working so smoothly, you shouldn't touch it. It's working very well. So what you need to look for is a problem. So in the problem statement, you need to write out what is it that's not working well in your company and why do you want to do the research. Then there's a framework development, even a research design. Then there's literature review. So all these are the buzzwords for research. Then we have the research design and plan. It comes under lecture 9. And in 10 is quantitative research. I just mentioned that. So you want to know how to do quantitative research? There's this particular lecture that gives you material to read up. Variables in research. What are the variables? What are you looking at? What are the headings you're going to give to your research? What are the elements of topics within the research? Then there's something called hypothesis testing, sampling, qualitative. Here was quantitative, now is qualitative. And then finally, writing and evaluating your research report. So in order for you to do well in this module, you need to spend a bit of time and access all the materials that are there. And you make notes on a separate book about what you think are important and the page numbers and the lecture number, so that when you want to go back to it, you know where to locate it. Then you know that this is the LMS portal. where you can do discussions, you can communicate with your lecturer. You've got your assessment if you want the guidelines for the assessment, and there's quizzes, maybe not for this module, the resources, the students' names, the live lectures, and there's a new one on analytics. All right, but who do you want to share the question with? Teachers, students, all students, selected students. So this is not new for you. You have seen this before. This is one book that is highly recommended for you to download from the link. It is the 7th edition of Research Methods for Business Students. And in this book, it'll cover everything that you need to know about research, the how to go and do research, even starting with the why do you do research, and the types of research, and how do you display your collected information. Let's do scope of the research project. So the scope, what or how much must you do? First, evaluate and make recommendations for organizational development relating to a theme or issue impacting the participant's organization, that is your organization or any other organization that the student is familiar with. So just take a look at the word evaluate. To evaluate means to examine and see what can be derived from what you have read, right? And then you need to make recommendations for organizational development. So I said earlier, when something is working right, leave it alone. When something is not working right, that's when you'll want to do a research, because then you can give your recommendations. Okay? The second one, design, develop, apply, evaluate practically sound business research skills and techniques, taking into consideration appropriate ethical, commercial, confidentiality, and data protection issues. So you are now going to carry out a research in your company. There are many considerations. One is ethical. Is it ethical for you to use the personal data or information from your company without letting your superior know? You cannot be putting in the names of people, the statistics of information that you have found out, and put it into your research project without their permission. That is not ethical at all. So sometimes you need to go and get permission. So you will inform your employer that I'm doing my BA and my module is research project. I'd like to do a project on this area. If you are going to talk to the staff, make them fill up forms, then you need to get permission. But if it is something that you know in your department, all right, you're not using much of the data, but it is with your experience, you roughly know, then it is a different angle of research. Commercial confidentiality, using people's names, using your company name for that matter, using statistics found in the company, they are all confidential, and you are not allowed to reproduce that into a project work that is going to be read by many people and soon belongs to the university. So you need to get permission, right? Whatever is confidential, you cannot release the actual name. So if your name of company is Apple Incorporated, you cannot write it as Apple Incorporated. You need to give a pseudonym. A pseudonym is a name, another name, but actually it is about Apple Incorporated. So you need to declare that in the beginning, that the name of the company that you're using is not the actual name and that it is a pseudonym. Data protection issues. This is something that is going on in every country. Our data is being leaked, and so you get phone calls from people who know your full name according to your identity card or according to your passport, right? They have your address, they called you, they have their phone number, and so everyone wants to feel protected. So there are issues. If you start putting in too much of confidential information into your project, you will face data protection issues. C. Critically evaluate the theme or the issue impacting on the organization or business models, drawing upon and developing concepts, models, and theories to provide feasible solutions to problems and issues identified in the said organization. So if you work in a sales department, you should do a project in sales because that is your experience. If you work in the human resource department, if you work in marketing, or if you work in operations or manufacturing, you should do that because that is what you know best. And you'll be able to make some recommendations for improvement. You do not need to give it back to the company, but for you, you are aware that these are some of the recommendations you can put forward. So you need to critically evaluate the theme. The theme is, what is the topic? What is the subject that you are researching on? It is impacting the business organization. You must choose a topic that has an impact to the organization. If, for example, there is, let's say, there are some losses created by pilferage or items getting spoiled, these are small matters depending on the volume. So it may not impact the business, right? Because it's not your department. You're not working in the stores, in the storage or inventory. So you need to choose one that has an impact. Then you present your findings through written presentations appropriate to both management and academic audiences. What this means is the way you write your project, it must be suitable for management to read it. They must understand what you're trying to say. And then you must fulfill that there are academic audiences, your lecturers, the evaluators, the first marker, second marker, the university representatives, they may take a look at your work. So it must be suitable for both management and academic audiences. Okay? If you have any questions, just write it down. At the end of the session, I'll open for Q&A, all right, so that I can complete the presentation. Next, I'm showing you the contents of the research, but later I will cover this again. So what you must have in your research is an abstract. An abstract will be a 1 page or 2 pages of write-up that gives an idea to the reader of what the entire research project is about. A good abstract will cover the chapters without stating chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, without saying in chapter 1, this is what I have found. In chapter 2, not so directly, but you write it in the flow to cover what you have done. Then there is an acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is important because who did you liaise with? Whose help did you get? Who supported you to do this research? If you are seeking permission from your employer, then you need to mention the position maybe. All right, if you don't want to mention the name, but you could mention the name because it's an acknowledgement. You are not exposing anything too confidential. Okay. If you receive support from people who help you to do the survey, you may want to thank them as a group, maybe your colleagues or the respondents or people who filled up the questionnaire. So get acknowledgement. From the acknowledgement, we will get an idea as to who are the people who played a role in you completing your project because you want to thank them. Then you start off with chapter 1, introduction. Every research, every assignment that you have done before, there's always an introduction because you need to introduce us to what we are going to read. It may have your company background. You may change the name of the company, but it'll have the details of the company, about the departments and how large the organization is. Literature review is chapter 2. What are the literature that you have read connected to the topic that you are doing? Okay. Research methodology. What kind of method did you use to carry out the research? What kind of method? You will describe it, but when you go for your classes, your lecturer will explain to you about research methodology in detail. Okay. Then comes the most important, the analysis and findings. So analysis, I mentioned earlier, is breaking down and understanding the statistics and the results of the information. You break it down because we don't want you to attach all the questionnaires to us. You have to do a summary. And then what did you find? In the problem statement, you highlighted that there was a problem in the company. In the findings, you have to connect that findings to the research, to the problem statement in the research. All right. If you said that the problem statement is A, B, and then your findings is X, Y, there's no connection at all. So something has gone wrong. So you need to keep reading back what you had said in your earlier chapters so that the flow is there. And that is why we don't give you many years to do research. You need to just get it completed, all right, within the 3 or the 6 months. Conclusion, so what? How are you going to conclude about your research? What has it done? And then you got to give the recommendation. Now, recommendation will be, I have seen the problem statement. I have done a research. I use these methods. I compared with the literature that other people have written about the same problem. And I did my analysis and I found out so many things. So now I need to conclude and give a recommendation. So the conclusion and recommendation is very important. I'll show you later on the marks. All right. Now, finally, the contents, you must have referencing. And you have already done some modules. So this is not new, but please get it right to use Harvard referencing. I showed you in the portal earlier, the screenshot of the portal. There are PowerPoints and even Word documents on how to write references. Okay. Now comes to specific requirements for the research project. Okay, what are the specific requirements? First, it must be thorough, rigorous, and well organized, and involves undertaking systematic research. So, thorough means doing it really well, and rigorous and well organized is putting the information in a very systematic way. All right. Second point, use appropriate methods to systematically collect and analyze the data. Where are you going to get the data? In research, you must have data. Usually it is by giving out forms for people to fill up. These days it is Google Forms. You can send emails. You can give them a face-to-face interview. There's so many ways of how you can collect data. So you must systematically collect and analyze. Collecting data and keeping it is of no use. You have to read it and make an analysis of who they are, what did they say, how many people said that. It will argue why the results obtained are meaningful and explain any limitation that are associated with them. So you will face limitations. To limit means you are not able to do it fully. Write down some of the limitations that you face. Some limitations can be that face-to-face cannot be held now because of the pandemic, so you have to use online collection of data. Okay. Third point, critically examining the relevant literature and research. Please read articles written by other people on the topic that you are going to do. If nobody has done that topic before, then you should not be doing it, because where are you going to get data to compare and to help you get your models and your theories? Fourth point, demonstrate the student's capacity for rigorous. When you are rigorous, you're really doing it at a very good speed, perceptive observation and critical assessment. Your perception and my perception are very different. So you have to be able to translate the data that you collected into sensible information, because it is a perceptive observation. It is one person's view. And critical assessment, assessing it, what they have said. Fifth point, display clear and coherent expression. Clear, right, using the correct words, good academic words, not spoken language but written language, good grammar, coherent expression, something in a very smooth flowing manner. It's systematic, it makes sense to understand. And then you must have discussion What about the people who completed the survey form? What about it? Discuss what you found. And then your presentation, even your presentation is of great importance. That gives you that extra marks sometimes to move you from pass to fail and fail to merit and merit to distinction. Last point, analyze and develop issues arising from the research. Analyze, examine, read, understand, interpret, and make appropriate recommendations for improvement. Because it was written in your problem statement. No problem, don't do it. There is a problem. Yes, do the topic because you can help the organization. One day, when you face the same problem again in a company that you own, you know what to do. All right, so recommendations for improvement. Now comes the assessment requirement. This is a 100% research project. Your word count is 7,000 to 8,000. We are already giving you the bracket of 7,000 to 8,000. So if you write more than 8,000, you did not follow the instructions well. If we say up to 8,000, you can exceed. But now we're giving you a bracket of 1,000 words, 7,000 to 8,000. So try to refine your work and keep to the limit. And I'm sure you know what is included in the word count. All right, I'll show you later when I do the final slide. It starts from the introduction right up to the conclusion and recommendation. It doesn't count the abstract. It doesn't count the references, the appendices. All right. Okay. Using 8 stages research project completion. So there are 8 stages. So I'd like to tell you that I am recording this session so that we will upload the video into the portal. And if you miss something that I've said, you can always download it and listen to it again. So let's take the first three stages. First is establish a general field of interest. A field of interest is, what are you interested in? What are you keen to explore about? Discuss this with your supervisor or your tutor. So you will be getting a supervisor. Discuss with the supervisor. And stage completed by, start putting dates down. If today is the 12th, maybe you want to meet your supervisor and in 10 days' time, you want to already confirm what is your area. Undertake background reading on your research and consider appropriate research approach. So you can't start writing your research yet. You need to do reading. But as you read, you make note and you copy the links on a separate page so that you know how to revisit it. So you need to do background reading. Let me take an example of, let's say, motivation. Everyone knows about motivation. So you want to do a topic about why your staff are not motivated. Okay? So you need to go and read up all the journals that you can get hold of about motivation. Okay? About motivation. Number 3, refine your ideas to develop a research proposal and give it a title. So earlier was your field of interest. You haven't got the title yet, right? Now in stage 3, you come up with a title. It is not a question, it is a statement. All right. So decide on the most appropriate method of gathering the data. Do you want to do questionnaire? Do you want to do interviews? Then continue reading and writing your literature review about the main approaches. Again, there's a date there. So these are what you need to fill up. Okay, you need to put your dates here because you have got your 3 months or plus to complete it. What do you do in step 4? Prepare the information gathering tools. Is it a questionnaire? Is it an interview? Is it a Google form? Is it an email? Start preparing that. The questions you ask in a questionnaire or an interview will be determined in a large measure of key points to emerge from your literature review. So you have to go back to your literature review and ask questions that are related to your literature. Stage again. 5. Collect data. Go out and collect it. Send it to people. Ask them to return it back to you. Do your Zoom interviews. Do your WhatsApp. Do whatever method you have to collect the data. Continue reading for literature review because you might get new readings. Finish draft of your methodology chapter. Okay, what date are you going to complete this? Stage 6, analyze your research data. So analysis is important. If not, your collection of data is like just collecting and it stays in a file. You need to analyze. So what about it? Who are the ones who filled out? What age group? What position did they have? What kind of company did they come from? Any kind of demographics will be the first part, and then comes to the specifics. So here, draft your results chapter. Your literature review should be 90% written by this stage. So you can prepare a Gantt chart to show how much time you have to complete the different stages. And stage 7, draft the analysis and conclusions chapter of your project, and you put in your date. Finish writing your project and submit. You put a date. Now, with this kind of a planning system, we are very confident you will not be asking for an extension. Okay? Try to get it done. Time management is a success, is one of the reasons for being successful in your research work. That's why you need to keep writing all the time. Key deadlines. Students, upon attendance of the research methodology workshop, either online or face-to-face, are required to complete and submit their research project. Between earliest is 3 months, extension maybe 6 months. Okay, don't go for more than 6 months. So the usual way that we advise students is, if it is 6 months, you put your target as 5 months or 4 months for some of you, so that you are able to give an extension yourself. I can't finish it, so I still got time. Don't go and set it at the 6 months. That's a very risky step to take. Supervision procedures. Okay, you're going to get a supervisor, but let me share with you what you can expect from the supervisors. Okay, you expect to be supervised, right? The work to be read in advance of meetings. So there will be a final submission date. Your supervisor may want you to present to him to listen whether everything is in the right way. Make sure you get it to the supervisor in advance of the meeting. Make sure that the supervisor is available. The supervisor to be approachable. All right, you must build your relationship with the supervisor because you want the supervisor to coach you, to help you, right? So you can't like go missing and suddenly try to contact your supervisor. You will not get a good answer from that supervisor. Their supervisor to be constructively critical. So we are not here to please you and tell you, oh, fantastic, well done, oh, amazing work. And then you don't do any corrections because it is amazing, it is wonderful. And then when the results come out, you won't be happy. So accept the fact that your supervisor is going to be very critical. Okay, he will criticize you, should criticize you. The supervisor to have good knowledge. I think you will expect the supervisor to be knowledgeable, that the receipt of work sent electronically will be acknowledged within a maximum of a working week, except where the supervisor is on approved annual leave. So when you give work to your supervisor, it's stated here that give the supervisor 1 week to get back to you, because you may not be the only student. The supervisor may be supervising a small group, all right, apart from other responsibilities. Now, what do you think supervisors expect you to do? That their students be independent learners. Now, if I'm a supervisor, I cannot be spoon feeding you. You are reaching the research project, and after that you're going to graduate. So don't expect your supervisor to spoon feed you. They expect you to be independent learners. That their students produce and submit work at least 48 hours before any scheduled meeting. When you want to meet your supervisor online or face to face to go through your work, give them 2 days to go through the work, because they have got other responsibilities. That their students seek advice and comment on work from peers and others. Don't be afraid to ask the opinion of your colleagues, your friends, somebody who can comment on your work. So we are hoping that you'll even get advice from your friends who read your work. Okay? That students listen to advice and make informed decisions before accepting or rejecting it. So don't say, I've spent so many hours doing it. It must be correct. I cannot redo it. It doesn't work that way. That the students accept that it is their responsibility to take the initiative in arranging regular meetings with their supervisors. It is your responsibility to contact the supervisor and say, sir, can I meet you because I want to discuss with you on my research project. You have to do that. In case of remote campus students, that they are responsible for regular electronic transmission. So when you send work, you send it by email. Don't send by WhatsApp, okay? Because it's not easy to read in a phone. That students make and keep appointments or give adequate notice of any cancellation. Yes, you have told your supervisor to meet you 48 hours notice. I think you should be fair that they will cancel their appointments because they're going to meet you. And so you don't go and cancel them an hour before the meeting. Give them a day's notice so they can reschedule back something that they needed to do. That students be honest when reporting the progress. So when we talk to you and ask you, how's your work? Have you done chapter 1? Don't please the supervisor and say, yes, we have done already. I have done already. I should be able to give you by tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. How is the progress going to take place? It's going to be so difficult. And then we have this. It says The supervisor is responsible, okay, for collaborating. So to collaborate with the student to produce a research timetable. So we suggest you, when you put the dates down on all your chapters that you're doing, the stages, try to put another date to meet your supervisor because you have already completed your work. You see, the reason why we're asking you to have constant contact with your supervisor is that if you start doing work independently, too independently, I finish stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and I give my supervisor 5,000 words to read. What if it is wrong? What are you going to do? If the supervisor says, no, 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 this is all wrong, that means your 5,000 words are wasted and you got to start back from word 1. So don't try that, okay? Please. We have seen this. Students try to finish up everything and then try to give it to the supervisor. Your supervisor will not accept responsibility. They will say, no, I'm not your supervisor. I won't sign your work. So, second point, advice on the structure of the project and feasibility of the methodology. So your supervisor will not only collaborate with you, but they'll advise you on the structure. They will critique the draft chapters. Allow them to criticize. This is not in. Where are your diagrams? Where is your theory? They were not going to tell you what to put in. They will just tell you what is missing and you got to go and look for it. But you can keep consulting your supervisor. Giving advice regarding submission of the project. Do you know sometimes a supervisor reads your work and they feel that this is a fail paper? They may tell you, don't submit it, redo it. Are you going to accept it? You have to, because it is for your good. So once again, it comes back to the timeline. You've got 8 stages. So you may want to meet your supervisor 8 times. The supervisor is not responsible for designing the fieldwork. Don't expect the supervisor to draft your work for you, to draft the questionnaire, to correct your grammar. No. They will look at the content. Editing and proofreading, we don't do that. You have to go and use spell checkers. You got to go and use grammar check. Arrangement of meetings is also not the responsibility of the supervisor. You need help. So you contact the supervisor, all right? Because you will know when is the best time to arrange for a meeting. You can have a meeting at night, even at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., after the day's work, after dinner, where, you can have a Zoom meeting. It'll be really good if you can implement that. Next. Please note, what's the heading? Yes, continuation. Please note that the frequency of the meetings will be decided between the student and the supervisor. At least 2. I see a question in the chat. One moment. No, not from your current company. You must go back to your learning center. They will, not employment supervisor, academic supervisor. Okay? There must be at least 2 progress reports. I did not put it here, but your supervisor will have a copy of that, will be required, and the frequency of these will be prerogative of the supervisor. Please remember that it is your responsibility and yours alone to maintain regular contact with your supervisor. Some comment and advice arises from the above. It is essential that you make use of spell and grammar check. So, like I said earlier, don't leave it to the supervisor to go and do, language check. They are content experts. Do not expect your supervisor to correct your English language and spelling. That is not their responsibility. What they will do, however, is to tell you if your work is deficient in these areas. You are responsible for ensuring that your work is up to the expected standards in these areas. If we are going to do the correction all over, it is beyond what the supervisor is expected to do. So you might say, but how do I know where I've gone wrong? Put the document through your spell check. Put the document through your grammar check. All these are coming with Microsoft Office. Okay, just a minute. Okay, rules governing contact with supervisors. Another area that causes problems is related to the fact that some students, for various reasons, fail to maintain regular contact with their supervisors. This practice can have several outcomes and, depending on severity, can attract penalties. It means that if you do not meet your supervisor or are in contact with your supervisor for the few times that is required, you will get a penalty. All right, and the penalty sometimes can be detrimental. The most serious outcome, take a look at this. The most serious outcome of lack of contact with supervisors is where students attempt to submit completely unsupervised projects. You complete your 100 pages or your 80 pages and you submit it. And who has read it? Nobody has read it. Don't try that. Such projects will not be accepted for consideration of the award of the BABA. All BABA research projects must be supervised. Okay? Remember, regular contact assures the supervisor that the work you are submitting to them is not plagiarized from work of others. University regulations pertaining to plagiarism are detailed in Appendix 2. So there is a document that you must sign to promise that you did not plagiarize. I'm sure you know what is plagiarism. Taking other people's work and claiming it to be your own. And don't look for any shortcut by getting a ready-made thesis and changing it. You will get caught in plagiarism. The system will detect it as long as it is online. Okay? Ethical considerations. Once your supervisor is appointed, you are advised to make contact with him or her as soon as is practical. The moment you receive an email saying, so-and-so is a supervisor, send an email back and make contact. Share your phone number. So they'll have your email because you've replied the email. Share your phone number and alternate email if you feel that you don't want to use the office email, and get it going. There are two broad categories into which a BABA student fits. Okay, low risk and high risk. The overwhelming majority of BABA projects are low risk. So you are not in that category where it's going to be high risk of failure. All BABA students are required to comply with the universal prescribed code of ethics when undertaking research. It just means that you are genuinely doing the work yourself. Okay? Submission of a draft research project. All students who progress to the BABA research project are given the opportunity to handing in a draft copy of their final document. So this is good because you can submit a draft copy. Your supervisor will advise you in good time as to the latest date when you can do this. The dates set depend on allowing sufficient time for your research supervisor to read your draft and comment on it. Once you submit your work to your supervisor, don't think that they are going to say, okay, you can submit it. Most of the time, 90% of the time, they will tell you, can you look at this particular page and this chapter? You need to change some details. Can you add in a diagram here? Can you correct the grammar in your whole document? And you need time to do it. All right, so don't blame that your supervisor gave it back to you late and you didn't have time to complete it. So the 1 month early is a good way. Then allowing sufficient time for you to take account of any of the comments and suggestions made by your supervisor so that you can incorporate any required changes into your final document. All right, so this is much later, you'll be reminded. Okay, submission of final research. The specific date for handing in your final project is generally dependent on the graduation event for which you are aiming. There may be other times agreed on an ad hoc basis, and if one of these times apply to you, you will be informed. Regardless of what dates applies, you will be informed in good time as to the specific date when you are required to submit your work. This date is final and non-negotiable. However, in extenuating circumstances, your supervisor may advise you to apply for a short extension. In all cases, any extension granted would mean that you will submit for the next graduation date after the one that was previously allocated. So you're going to delay yourself by 1 whole year because of asking for an extension. All right, that is the maximum. So you can check with your center when is the next graduation and whether you want to rush and go for it or you want to go for another time. Marking, there will be a first marker and there will be a second marker. So don't think that your supervisor is the only one who is going to mark your work and give you an A. There is another supervisor to cross-check. Both markers assess your work independently only when the project has been read and marked by both assessors independently do they get together and discuss your work and agree a final mark. Should both markers find difficulty in agreeing a final mark, a third marker may be necessary. Let's say your supervisor gives a distinction and the second marker gives you a merit, so many marks difference, 20 marks difference. So we'll get a third marker. A sample project mark sheet that details the assessment criteria is shown on the next slide. It's in the attachments, okay? Okay, so this is the mark distribution. Abstract and acknowledgement, you'll be given 5 marks. So no matter how well you do it, it's 5 marks. Introduction, 10 marks. Literature review, 15 marks. Your research methods, 20 marks, because you're going to describe what you did and so on. And look at the analysis and findings. This is the maximum, 30 marks. Conclusion and recommendation, 10 marks. Referencing, 5 marks. Sometimes even the 5 marks can save you. And presentation and word count compliance, 5 marks. If it is 7,000 to 8,000 and you went to 10,000, you will lose the 5 marks. All right, so follow the instructions. Okay. There is a handbook in the portal. You can refer to that. But I'd like you to do this now. First of all, thank you very much for sitting in this briefing session. I'd like you to refer to the Google form link in the email that you received. Click on it now and just complete the survey. We just like to have feedback from you, and then I will stop share and wait for you to come back for Q&A. All right, so please go to your email and look for the Google form link. Thank you so much for joining in the session, and I'm very sure that you will do well, and I wish you all the best in your research project. So as a reminder, this recording will be put up in the portal, and if you'd like to listen to it again, please access it and listen to it so that you become familiar. Thank you very much.